Welcome to Oysters with a Pearl, the podcast series presenting the key outcomes of the eMSP NBSR project. My name's Kira G. I'm an MSP expert working at the Federal Maritime and Hydrographic Agency in Germany, and I'm delighted to be a host for this series. The EU-funded eMSP NBSR project brought together planners, experts and stakeholders from the North Sea and Baltic Sea regions to collaboratively advance MSP practice. Urgent emerging topics were considered in communities of practice, and a series of practical recommendations were developed. Today, we are talking about M&E, or monitoring and evaluation in MSP. And I'm joined by Jacek, Zaucha and Magdalena Matczak, both of whom are from the Maritime Institute at Maritime University in Gdynia in Poland, and Philipp Arndt from the Federal Maritime and Hydrographic Agency in Germany. So Jacek, Magda and Philipp, the three of you led the monitoring and evaluation learning strand. And Jacek, let me start with you. Why would you say is M&E, or monitoring and evaluation, still such an important topic? Why should we care?
Well, the simple answer is that we must be ready for updating our plans. According to the EU directive, every 10 years we should look whether the plan is valid. And if it is not valid, we should try to change it. Monitoring plays an important role to make management of the maritime space more wise, more conscious. But I think that there are some other all equally important issues we should take into consideration. So the first one is I name it MSP family. Because, during the preparation of MSP, you form a group of people. So this stakeholder process for me is very important because during monitoring, you are meeting, you are discussing with them. We should bring stakeholders outside the typical suspects. So for example, we should bring industries, businesses. We should bring also normal people.
That is such a really interesting perspective, I think, because it broadens the idea of monitoring and evaluation beyond the mechanistic perspective that we might sometimes take and think it's a one-off thing that we do just once in order to improve our plans. But you're saying it's actually a process, an ongoing thing that involves a broad range of stakeholders and sectors and people.
Exactly. I mean, of course, Kira, the updating of the plans is, key issue. We should still keep in mind that it's our task. But besides that, we should think also about other benefits of the monitoring.
Philipp, you are representing one of the countries that is now in the second generation MSP plans. Is there anything else why you think M&E is such a crucial topic?
I think Jacek really made a good point with that perspective. And I also think that M&E, it really supports the transparency of the whole process. By that, it's really a step beyond just the idea of making better plans. But for me, also really important is the idea of making better plans and adapted plans, because as we see now, the world is changing so fast, and you might have to revise your plan even faster. So you need an idea what is happening in the world and how these changes affect your plan. And of course, therefore, it is really important to be in touch with the stakeholders to get their information, but also their view on these changes and bring that together in the holistic perspective of MSP.
Yeah, so to really have your nose to the ground, so to speak, to trace changes that are happening faster and faster, as you were saying. But M&E also still is a bit of a tricky thing, isn't it? Because it can be a bit complicated, really. So one of the aims of the project has been to support planners with very specific practical suggestions. And I'm wondering if you can maybe give us 3 or 4 key aspects, key messages, specifically for planners wanting to do M&E, wanting to do a good job in the face of all these rapid changes.
Yes, maybe I can start, but it's it's a big question. Before or some years ago, people were, I think, a bit lost how to do this. our core message was that we can show a way for a really structured process of M&E for a concept, how this complexity can be reduced. So we broke down the complexity into 6 dimensions. Although all these dimensions are interlinked with each other, this makes it easier for planners to handle this. I also want to add the examples that we took up. For example, we have the stakeholder process. We had the example from Sweden. We also had this sectoral development reporting from BSH in here in Germany. And I hope that this is something that inspires planners to take these ideas up. With these ideas and examples at hand, you can create a quite tailored M&E concept for yourself.
That sounds so useful, actually breaking down that complex task into something more manageable, into something that makes sense, and also something that's adaptable, because I think you're totally right. No MSP is the same. Just very quickly, Philipp, you mentioned some dimensions. You said you broke it down into 6 dimensions, I believe. What are they?
The first dimension is the plan itself. How the plan and the designations work, that has to be evaluated. But we also looked into the stakeholder process, as I mentioned before, the sectoral development, the marine environment, and the legal frameworks and policies of MSP. And now I think there was just 5. Coherence.
That, in fact, is another rather complex topic. So let me come back to you, Jacek, and ask you, why do you think coherence is going to be so important in the future? And more importantly, what does monitoring and evaluation specifically mean in the context of coherence for MSP?
Okay, so simple answer is that coherence is important because it's one of the key prerequisites of good maritime spatial planning, which is in the directive. What we should monitor is whether we have real spatial conflicts between different plans. An example can be the transport corridors do not meet each with other, so then it's a real problem. Even more important are synergies between plans. My favorite example is Middle Bank, which is an area in the middle of the Baltic Sea, divided by the border between Poland and Sweden. And both countries, they wanted to develop there some industrial activities, but there was a problem of harbor proposal. And Sweden, they make a gentleman agreement with Poland to save other Swedish banks for purpose of harbor proposed resting. So here you can see that the plans, they can result in synergies as well. And this is the level of coherence we can monitor. But of course, a little bit more difficult is monitoring the axiological layer. So whether all those plans in the one sea basin, they are driving us in terms of values, targets, ambitions into the same direction. For example, Denmark, they want to develop renewable energy. In some other countries, they pay much more attention, for example, to this green, blue infrastructure. And then, of course, something which is very difficult for monitoring of the impact of MSP plans at the sea basin. So we have some, agreed strategic objectives, for example, European Green Deal or good environmental status. And now the question is, to what extent MSP is contributing to that? But I would like to add also something on top of that. And I do believe that there is a need for monitoring not only of the space allocation, but also allocation of those governance, or also with the implementation of those governance processes, how they work, whether those guidelines, they do their job, how they are implemented. They are voluntary, so countries don't need to stick to them, and whether they make a change. And on top of that, to have a kind of monitoring of innovations, at least systematic attempt to identify those game changers for me, makes sense as a part of monitoring of the MSP coherence at the sea basin.
I mean, it sounds to me like monitoring is going to be really the crucial step in a way, or the crucial process to bring forward MSP on the whole. And there's lots of different types of monitoring that we have touched upon and that the eMSP project has touched upon.
Yeah, exactly. I agree that for me, my main message is that this monitoring and evaluation is very, very rich. I mean, it's not only simple technical issue, it has a policy relevance. And please remember also that when we are monitoring those impacts and evaluate impact of MSP, we should also think about these social issues. So redistribution of goods and bads, or distribution of goods and bads, and representation, things like that. So this is also important as a broader framework for monitoring and evaluation.
I mean, that's exactly why monitoring and evaluation is such a complex thing, and that's why everyone is a bit scared of it, maybe. And that's why the project results are so important, to try and break it down, to make it more manageable, to make it more accessible. So that's really great. But Magda, we haven't heard from you at all, and I'm sorry. Let me ask you, first of all, also to, what do you think are some of the key messages you are taking from eMSP and the monitoring and evaluation learning strand?
The key messages. For me, the key message was just let's do it. Let's not be scared of this huge MSP monitoring and evaluation elephant. Let's cut it into pieces and let's try to do it step by step. Otherwise, we will never start. I know that this message has been taken by one of the country, by Poland also. So
yes, I heard, in fact, that some of the project's results have already been taken on board. So what exactly are you doing?
Yeah, so, of course, Poland, like most of the EU countries, adopted its first Maritime Spatial Planning in 2021, so 3 years ago. But so far, no monitoring activities has been taken up. And I have to say, underline that the MSP monitoring as such is even not required by law in Poland. So there is no such a trigger in our legislation. I can give you 3 examples.
Please.
Looking into coherence, we had this trilateral discussion on cross-border coherence between Poland, Germany, and Sweden. And when we discussed later with our maritime administration, they say that they could see, thanks to those discussions, some cross-border topics in a new light, especially in a light of Swedish plan revision. So this cross-border coherence is kind of important issue right now in Poland. A second example is the Swedish stakeholder assessment report mentioned by Philipp earlier. So it inspired us so strongly, and it's also an example of cutting the elephant into pieces. So we say, okay, let's do the first small step. Let's do this stakeholder assessment report in Poland. So we performed the similar research in Poland. And I have to say that the results were very inspiring, and they gave us a lot of useful hints how to shape the next planning process and what to tackle when monitoring, how to monitor, what indicators should we use. And the third example, and I think that's the most important here, we have taken the monitoring and evaluation conceptual framework, also mentioned by Philipp, and the recommendations and all the policies briefs. And we start to shape the Polish MSP monitoring for real. So a special monitoring working group has been established, and we have read the report. And the real job is now undergoing in Poland. I cannot tell you the details because it's an internal national issue, but the work has been started. I think I can say that it's because of the project, the courage that was given by the project.
Wow.
Just let's do it. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Thank you for that. And it just goes to show that projects are so important as exactly that inspiration and to take the next step. Thanks to the 3 of you for joining me today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
And thanks to all the listeners. If you'd like to find out more, check out the eMSP website on www.emsproject.eu, where you can download all the policy briefs and reports, including the ones on monitoring and evaluation. And don't forget to tune in for the other episodes of Oysters with a Pearl, which are also available on the website.